I've finally finished The Outer Worlds 2 after around 40 hours and I'm ready to give my full review. I went into this game with very low expectations. I thought the first game was fine, not terrible, not amazing, just okay. Pretty forgettable, to be honest. And yeah, I'm a huge New Vegas fan, but that was old Obsidian. Most of those developers are long gone and their newer games feel a lot more casual. Honestly, the last Obsidian game I really loved was Pentiment. And before we start, I'll say what I always say, games just aren't worth full price anymore. Wait for sales, complete editions, or split the costs and game share with a friend. We all work too hard for our money. Anyway, let's get into the review and see if The Outer Worlds 2 is actually an upgrade from the first game, or if it's one of those games I'll probably forget shortly after playing it. Quick reminder, I already made an early impressions video after finishing the first planet. Now that I've beaten the entire game, let's see how everything holds up. The opening of The Outer Worlds 2 drops in your first mission where you're poking around these strange rifts threatening the colony. It also introduces the new star system, Arcadia, and lets you pick your character and background, as well as your traits, which actually affect some of the early and late game decisions. It's basically a light tutorial, but honestly, it was done well enough to keep me hooked and wanting to see what happens next. First, I'm going to talk about story and writing. The story is more serious in the first game, but there is so much filler dialogue that I got bored and skipped through quite a lot of it. Which doesn't make sense because Pentiment had barely any gameplay or voice acting, and I never skipped anything there because dialogue was interesting and important. In The Outer Worlds 2, the dialogue just keeps going and there's no real point in it. It's nothing important, it's nothing worth listening to. I'm not saying for all of the dialogue, but there are a lot of points where I was just wondering why I'm even listening to this guy. I even got a flaw for skipping the dialogue that put a timer on my dialogue choices. I thought that was quite funny. There are dialogue options, and yes, your skills and perks still matter. In some parts of the game, your choices and your perks you pick can change certain outcomes, and depending on what perks you choose, you might get a slightly different outcome to certain conflicts, which does give it quite a bit of replayability, and I think most of us will have a slightly different experience. There are some moral choices, and you can be kind of a prick or a psychopath. And what I do like is that certain companions will actually support that. Others will just disband and leave the party. But it is cool that there are companions that will stick with you, even if you are a massive piece of shit. There are some bigger moral choices where the fates of certain towns and things are in your hands. They are cool, and sometimes you can just mess a place up. The main story for me was a bit slow, and I didn't really have much interest in the story. I'm not saying it was bad, I just didn't care, and the story didn't hook me in enough to make me care. I'm not saying that everything about the story was terrible, you do meet some interesting characters along the way, and out of the multiple endings that there are, I actually did kind of like the one I got. It's just a pity that the story didn't keep me invested. I also want to talk a bit about side quests. There is a good variety of side quests. A lot of them were fun and interesting, and some of the writing in the side quests I found even better than the writing in the main story. There were, unfortunately, your normal run-of-the-mill RPG quests you've seen a million times, but that is just to be expected in these type of games. For the most part, the side missions are worth doing. I do recommend you do most of them, and I did the vast majority of them during my 40-hour playthrough. You never feel forced though to grind XP, and leveling feels perfect. The game never blocks you or forces you into XP farming, like, for example, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There are 6 factions in total, including the Earth Directorate, which you are part of from the get-go, and then there are 2 other main factions which you can join and do faction quests for. The one is Auntie's Choice, and the other one is the Order. I unfortunately had to go with the Order because for some reason the game bugged out and I wasn't able to progress further in the Auntie's Choice quest line. There are also some smaller factions like Sub Rosa, and if you do some side missions and things for them, they open unique vendors for you, which I thought was pretty nifty. It kind of does suck though. I wanted to join the Protective, which are the big bad guys of the whole game, and you'll be shooting at them a lot. Unfortunately though, you cannot join them, and they don't even have a reputation bar, which is quite disappointing. Another one I also really wanted to join was the Rift Cult and do assassination missions, like Space Dark Brotherhood for the lack of better words. I did have fun with the faction missions, I just really did start it very late in the game. They didn't make much of an impression early on, and I really only started the faction missions when I started running out of things to do, and I did them very close to the end of the game. There is also environmental storytelling. You can find notes, terminals, and audio logs, and some of the audio logs were genuinely quite funny, and I enjoyed listening to the vast majority of them. There are also massive rewards for exploration. You're almost always rewarded for going off the beaten path. Because the planets are smaller and more contained, they're dense, and honestly, they are a joy to explore. Look everywhere. They have packed the maps with secrets and awesome gear and weapons to find. Moving on to gameplay and systems, leveling felt really good like I said before, and the perks actually make a noticeable difference. Some perks are really amazing, like increased magazine size, or one of my favorites, Psychopath, where you can take the hearts out of enemies for small damage boosts. So the more hearts you have in your inventory, the more damage you do. I thought that was pretty sick. And yeah, some perks were complete trash, and I don't see any reason to choose them. I also quickly want to talk about the flaws system, probably the coolest and most memorable part of the game. Flaws give positives and negatives. Early on, I took a flaw that made it so I couldn't reject any others. So this whole playthrough, I ran around with a lot of flaws. And some were great and others were ridiculous. The kleptomaniac flaw made me steal automatically, getting me into massive trouble anywhere where there were shops. Another flaw took chunks of my money and saved it until I was level 30. It did pay interest on level up, but damn, I struggled with money because of it. When I think back on the game, the flaw system is probably what I'll remember most. Inventory and crafting. The inventory system is simple and easy to use, and you don't have a carry limit, so you can pick up to your heart's desire. I picked up everything, even if things were useless. You can also craft mods and ammo, and I used that a lot early on in the game. Talking about mods, weapons and armor can have mods. These do matter more than you may think. For example, armor can have extra holsters, or your weapons could have an extended clip for more ammo. And all this stuff helps a lot. I felt at a disadvantage when I didn't use my mods. For me, the overall balance of the game was perfect. By the end, I was strong as hell, I wore heavy armor and always used my shield gadget, since my character was super sickly and had a ton of flaws. Heavy armor helped me tank damage. I died a fair amount, but I never got stuck. If I do replay though, I'll probably play on hard mode. Let's quickly move on to companions. There are 6 companions in total. You get 2 early on, and the rest you find throughout the story. You can only take 2 at a time though. They're okay, but Val the robot has literally no character. Even after her quest line, there's no character development whatsoever. She is bland. I didn't care much for the companions overall. They're all a bit dull compared to something like even the first Mass Effect. And I feel like if you pick a character, even though they're not great combat-wise, that speaks for itself. In the Outer Worlds 2, I just picked characters because I needed them in combat, not because I liked their personalities. There were companion missions, and I did all of the companion quests. Some were fun, but many of them had no real payoff. A couple did stand out, and some were genuinely quite interesting. I liked them. But unfortunately, after the quest, there isn't much growth to the characters. Still, they're worth doing for the character upgrades. A small touch that I did like was after these upgrades, their gear does change visually. Cool stuff. Every companion does have combat abilities, and each of them is unique. So each of the characters' combat ability is different, and some of them are really fun to watch. The companions also level up with you, so they always are getting stronger. I mostly use Tristan and Marisol. They were best for my playstyle. Companions also react during missions, and sometimes they can even get you out of trouble. And I enjoyed those little moments. It made it feel like they were actually there with me during my adventure. Like I said before, there is also banter and reactivity. Companions react to your choices, and if you screw up, they can leave for good. They comment on missions, and some have unique solutions to problems, like this
Might
one,
want
for
to stand
example.
back. This could get messy. If I do it right.
Tristan will also moan every time you kill the protectives if you shoot at them first, but to be honest, I wasn't really careful and I didn't lose any of my companions. And if your speech is high enough, for the most part, you can convince them a few times not to leave. Let's talk about world and exploration. You choose planets from your ship, which is kind of like the game's hub. This is also where all of your companions will hang out. There are a total of 4 planets and various space stations that you can explore. The first planet was the weakest for me by far. It has super bright colors everywhere, like a unicorn vomited all over it. Also, just as kind of a side note or side tangent, I'm kind of getting tired of all these super colorful games. I know the Veil Guard also did it, and yes, for certain games it does work quite well. I don't have an issue with it in Outer Worlds 2. I just personally enjoy the more gritty and muddy style games used to have. For example, Gears of War, or if we go to another RPG, Dragon Age Origins. I know they weren't super colorful, but I don't know, I just really enjoy the art styles of those games more, and I'm not a massive fan of these super colorful games. I don't have an issue with it, and sometimes, yes, like in Outer Worlds 2, it can look nice. It's just when every game does it, it does get a bit tiresome, and I just miss how the older RPGs looked. Anyways, let's continue. The first planet was relatively flat, but still a decent area to explore, and it does teach you most of the mechanics, and it is easy to navigate. The later planets have awesome landmarks, and the game actually really looks good in some places. Also, just look at some of these landmarks, they are beautiful. You do get rewarded for exploration. Exploration is a strong point in this game, and you constantly find great loot. You can also stumble onto bounties where you'll get rewarded for cool weapons. There are even these awesome little rifts you can do eventually, and you get amazing gear from it. What's also quite cool is there is environmental diversity, so all 4 planets feel different. I meant the first planet, like I said, flat, colorful. The second planet for me was my favorite in terms of everything. I meant there were these beautiful crystals, and at night especially they would glow up, and it was just such a joy to explore this planet. This planet also had some really cool landmarks. I mean, this place looks straight out of BioShock Infinite. And depending, you can choose the third or the fourth planet, so these 2 planets are going to just be different depending on which one you go to first. For me, the third planet was this lightning planet with these massive lightning storms, and it was just crazy to look at. And the fourth planet had these icy caves and big open frozen areas. And what I liked actually is like there were like these little heaters in the frozen area, like just some cool effects that like you don't freeze to death. Kind of reminds me a bit of Frostpunk. Anyway, let's continue. My favorite planet was the second planet, like I said before. The crystals at night were amazing to look at, and the place was just war torn. Fighting through these trenches, it was great fun. Let's move on to combat. The gunplay feels much better than the first game. Not amazing or anything, but way more fun than it has any right to be. Honestly, it's one of the strongest parts of this game. You can ignore the story and still have fun just because the shooting is so satisfying. The weapon variety is also strong. There are a lot of different guns, and all the guns look and feel different. You get the shrink ray, which was hilarious and fun to use, snipers, shotguns, revolvers, goo guns. I like nearly all of them. There were also legendaries, often which have cool different effects, and a small little detail as well is some guns fire differently if you are aiming or hip firing, like this machine gun of mine, which will burst fire when you hip fire and goes back into fully automatic once you aim down sights. And the loot loop was surprisingly addictive. I loved finding new weapons. It was great stuff. There is also a melee, which just didn't hit for me. I basically never used it, and even though I found some really cool melee weapons, I just did not bother with it at all. There are also gadgets and abilities. There's the tactical time dilation, which slows down time, which, like in any other game, when you slow down time, it's just fun as hell to use. Unfortunately, though I barely used it, my character was extremely sickly, which means I had low health, and this was also because I had a ton of flaws. I mostly had to use the shield gadget because I would not survive without it. There was also goggles for invisible enemies, which was really a cool mission. Unfortunately, though, this never really gets used again. Like, that was a really fun mission, and then it's finished. I also think I had a little bit of a bug with it where I couldn't loot the invisible enemies without putting it on. So they just went out of existence as soon as I took the goggles off. But it's just unfortunate that they never used it more. It would have been cool if they used more of these invisible enemies and actually kind of forced me in the open world to use these goggles. I just think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Anyway, let's continue. The enemy AI was just disappointing. You can distract enemies easily, pickpocket them easily. There is no real reaction to anything that you do. They don't really care. It's like you can literally steal stuff out of their pockets with no negative repercussions. And you also can't pickpocket all of the NPCs in the game, just certain NPCs. Some, yeah, some you just can't. I'm not sure why. Probably just not important enough to steal from. There is also a decent enemy variety. Okay, it's not amazing. The first planet had way too many crabs, and the game doesn't throw many enemy types at you overall. You will be shooting a lot of the same enemies over and over again. There were some cool enemy types, but just far too few. The combat pacing is decent, gunplay is tight, like I said before, but the bad enemy AI makes it repetitive after a while. And once I got to the end of the game, I really started to feel it, and I just wanted to finish the game. I'm going to quickly talk about performance. It's not going to be long because I didn't really have many performance problems or glitches. Sure, I had one or two mission bugs, which you usually do get in most RPGs, and you just use the tried and true quick reload, and that fixed it. Um, I'm not sure if you guys have played it. Let me know in the comments if you guys have been experiencing any bugs. Just let me know in the comments, and then other people can also just see if you guys have run into any bugs or performance problems. For me, so far, it's been pretty smooth, but please do drop that in the comments so that everybody can see it. I'm going to quickly talk about my overall experience and final thoughts. I did pretty much everything in my 40 hours, and I feel like I experienced everything the game had to offer. There is definitely some replayability. The game does offer a third-person mode, so if you want to go back and experience the game in a completely different perspective, you can do that in third person. What I usually do though, if a game has a third and first person, is I will usually finish it in one of the perspectives, and then when I play again later on, like when this game gets its complete edition, I'll finish the entire game probably in third person. The story was pretty mid. Some choices mattered, which is always nice to see, but the dialogue felt weak at times, and there was just too much useless, unimportant dialogue that just wasted time. And at some points, I just got bored. I needed to take breaks. And sometimes I even wanted to play other games. What kept me playing was the exploration, the tight gunplay, the leveling up, and especially the flaw system. That was probably the highlight for me. It made it so entertaining. This is very much a casual RPG, and I'd actually recommend it to people who are newer to games, or maybe not games, but RPGs. It's a nice starting point with fun combat and interesting exploration, and I think people will find some of the dialogue and choices that you can make quite interesting. It is better than the first game, even if not by a huge amount. In the end, it's up to you, but I recommend waiting for the complete edition when it has all of its DLC and goes on sale. I think then it will probably be worth it. Games are too expensive and we work hard for our money. And with the rate that the indie game scene is going, you can buy Clear Obscure and Hollow Knight for the same price. And I would rather just recommend doing that. Or go get yourself Dragon Age Origins and Fallout New Vegas. Those are also better games. Yes, they have aged. I still think you're going to get much more value for your money out of those games. That's just my opinion and the way I see it. I feel like this will be another game I eventually forget, but it was a fun little distraction while I wait for something better to play. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, please consider subscribing. I am learning how to review games, so the next review will probably be a bit better, and I hope I see you guys in the next one.